I'm aware of a challenge that Sifu Freddy has put out as a goal for his senior students to realize. That challenge being to read 100 martial arts related books. They could be books about certain styles, certain techniques. It could be what he's calling philosophia, any kind of martial arts related book. And myself, I've been in recent years, I've kind of avoided books in the same way that I've avoided too much TV and too many movies and these kind of things, but even more so books, because I got burnt out on reading. I'm in the academic profession, and I've read a lot of, I've been compelled to read a lot of really bad writing. And that was fine because I was seeking at the time certain knowledge that really, and experience that really I needed to be immersed in the literature, including the bad and the good. But I got to the point where, you know, if I pick up a book and I start reading it, and even if I'm halfway through the book, even if I'm further than halfway through the book, and I'm kind of turned off, you know, I'm going to put the book down and forget about it. I don't need that book, right? So, and in general, my nature is not to be a spectator. My nature is to do practical, applied, productive work, and not to be someone who sits and watches things from the sidelines. If I've got time to sit and watch something, I should use that time for doing it instead. If I'm that interested in it, then I'm going to sit and watch it. I should do it. And with that in mind, when I hear, you know, Sifu's challenge, read 100 martial arts books, I think for myself, well, yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know how many martial arts books I've read in my lifetime. Probably not 100, but I've read a great deal. But I think, you know, the challenge is important. To be aware of the literature, and to have a foundation in it. At the same time, though, myself, I'd be more interested, framing the challenge for myself, I'd be more interested in writing a martial arts book. And in particular, you know, one of the things that I've learned as a college teacher is that often a good narrative story goes a heck of a lot more ways, is more compelling, is more inspirational. People remember the teachings more in a narrated story. I'm not going to say fiction. It doesn't have to be fiction. It could be a first-person account. But at the same time, I don't even like the word fiction, because when you use the word fiction, it's in contrast to nonfiction, and people have this perception that non-fictional writing is the truth. And so if it's written in a non-fictional form, people are less critical of it, because they believe the fiction is the stories, and the other writing is not story. It's talking, you know, objectively, and that's not the case. You know, everything that's supposed to be objective in literature is really just as much the imaginings of the writer as any piece of fiction. But you know, to get back on track, for me, fiction, for me, narrative, a good story is, you know, it's far more compelling and entertaining and useful as a teaching tool than any other form of writing. So if I was to ever write a martial arts book, and I'm considering it, you know, in terms of this challenge to read 100 books, if I'm going to read 100 books, I better write one myself, right? So if I was going to write one, it would be a story. Having said that, last night I finished a book called A Sudden Dawn, and Sudden Dawn is by Grant Powell, and it's his first novel. Grant Powell is a Goju Ryu practitioner, and I think the publisher of the book may be the very same publishing group that puts out the Journal of Asian Martial Arts, which is a good journal if you want to check out how martial arts is being dealt with in an academic and scholarly way. But Gran chose to write a novel, and so I finished the novel. And for me to finish a book from cover to cover means that there was something about the book that held my interest, because like I said, I'm prone to get a little ways into the book and just think, I'm wasting my time, and put it away. This book wasn't like that. This book was the story. I got caught up in the story, and enjoyed the reading, and it's a book that I'd recommend. And what it is Gran's his imagining of the life of Bodhidharma. It's also called Damo in China. It's also called Daruma in Japan, and but you know, Bodhidharma was an Indian Buddhist monk, and he's usually, well, he's attributed as the founder of Shaolin Kung Fu or Wushu practices. Now, historically, people don't know if that's exactly true. In terms of historical records, they know for sure that yes, he did travel from India to China and was assigned by the emperor at the time to the Shaolin Temple. And this was in an era when Buddhism was just starting to get entrenched in China. The emperor was a Buddhist, and so Bodhidharma went to Shaolin, and there he did institute a physical regime known as the 18 movements, which are basically martial arts techniques and stances. But a lot of people also say that he created those first animal-inspired forms of Shaolin. And moreover, he is irrefutably the founder of Zen. So this was this Powell's first book, his first novel, and he's taken on quite a challenge to tell a life story of somebody as significant as Bodhidharma. But I think he pulled it off very well. I liked the way that he imagined this man's life. I liked the story that he told. And in the book there's a lot of good teachings embedded in the story. Good teachings about Buddhism, about Zen, about martial arts. Of course, traveling all the way from India to the capital Nanjing in China to the Shaolin Temple. You know, most of the book is a travel story, and early on in that travel story, see, I'm not gonna really go and spoil the book by telling too much, but I'll tell just a couple of basics. You know, he did pick up a disciple early on, and this disciple turns out, you know, eventually to be Hui Ko, who is the kind of the patriarch of Chinese Zen meditation practice at Shaolin. So early on, when he gets into China, he adopts him as a disciple, and all the way along on their journey, they're training in martial arts. And so for me, it was like the perfect story, because it was all set in outdoors, and depicting all kinds of inspirational training that can be done outdoors. And that's the stuff that that I enjoy. And so, you know, there's parts in just about every chapter, I think every chapter, where it describes, where there's long descriptions of outdoor training, hard outdoor martial arts and physical training, running mountains, practicing on trees, lifting heavy boulders, swimming in ice-cold waters, practicing kicks in snow, you know, throwing a bunch of sand in just a plain cloth bag and hanging it up to practice on. There's lots of sparring. There's lots of just demanding form practice and weapons practice, and all of these things being done outdoors. That to me was just the right thing to read, and I probably will snag a couple of the ideas that were in there as potential physical practice or martial practice to do outdoors. There were also some ideas about the animal-inspired origins of martial arts, and in one chapter in particular, the two Damo and Ko get snowed in. Basically, they're in the mountains, and there's huge mountain squalls, and they're forced to take up shelter in a little cabin with somebody who's a hunter and a trapper, and they stay with him for the winter. And over the winter, when they get breaks in the snow, they go out with him to do hunting and trapping. And as kind of part of their payment for staying there, when this man hunts, they carry the heavy carcasses back to the cabin. But anyway, while they're out there, they have a hunting dog, and they witness how different animals respond to this dog, the different strategies that they use to beat, in some cases, this dog. And it's that strategy that Bodhidharma ends up taking and training Ko in applying that in sparring, where he'll practice a certain kind of attacking style, and that he knows that if Ko is paying attention while they were out that day to the animals, then he will know a strategy to use that will be able to defend against that kind of attack. And so it's the strategy that he gets, less than the actual mimicking of the movements of the animals and that kind of a thing. It's the underlying strategy. For instance, when I was walking down here to the river just now, on my way down I came across some ringneck pheasants, and they knew I was there before I knew they were there. And every time I get close to one, it burst out, lots of noise, sudden burst, and it kind of throws me off guard. And while I'm off guard, they fly away. So that would be an example of animal strategy, and that's very familiar to me in Blackfoot tradition here. For instance, the pheasants, the partridges, and the grouse are all known for this strategy. They're known to be able to beat bears with this strategy, because a bear will be coming along and they'll wait till the last minute and then burst out, scare the bear, and in the meantime they get away. And so that's a strategy. I'm not going to talk about the exact strategies that are in the story of the book, because I don't want to be a spoiler if you want to read it. But I will say that one of the principal examples that they use in the book is also something that's been witnessed up here, and attention given to it as a particular strategy that a certain animal employs. So that stuff was fun to read. The reading about the animal strategies, because that's all the kind of things that I'm interested in as well. And another benefit of the book was that there were embedded lessons about Zen and about seeking the truth, about meditation, and about how martial arts practice plays into that. When Bodhidharma first arrives at Shaolin and starts trying to institute a physical regime among monks who normally just spend their day studying scriptures, he's not well received by some of the kind of the high council of the temple, and eventually there's a confrontation, to explain himself why the interest in the physical combat. And he explains it very well in the book, at least this Powell's imaginings of what Bodhidharma might say. And it basically comes down to the idea that that the truth is that there's violence in the world, and so if you are really seeking the truth, then you can't eliminate that. You can't pretend that doesn't exist. and it's important for you to be able to negotiate that violence if it hits you. But moreover, the idea that without a healthy body, the mind is not going to be healthy either. A healthy body makes for a clear and strong mind. It's going to be better able to discern the truth. And the way he's looking at it, the martial arts practice is really a lot the same as meditation, in terms of the demons that the practitioner is going to have to face in themselves, in their own minds, and overcome, whether it be sit-in meditation or martial arts. So there's a lot of good stuff, and I'm not talking about all of the lessons that are in there, because I think some of the really good lessons that are in there, I think somebody should read themselves. But they're embedded in the story, and that's the kind of presentation I like, because you remember them when they're embedded in stories. So, A Sudden Dawn, book number 1 for me in the challenge of 100 martial arts books, but also has me thinking and fairly inspired by the book, and I would recommend it as a good read for anyone who wants to check out a good martial arts story.